What is normal? What is normality? Well, I was thinking about this question recently because it came up in a discussion during a session of this revolutionary psychoanalytic discussion group that I take part in, which also doubles as like a psychedelic jam session folk music ensemble. And we were talking about normality, and someone brought up the concept of statistical normality. And that got me thinking about normality in a mathematical sense, which is a bit of a stretch for me because I've always had something of a math phobia. I'm getting a little nervous just thinking about it now. But I'm going to try to demonstrate something using math so that we can get a better sense of what normal really is. Okay, let's say that we have 7 numbers. 7 numbers representing some supposedly quantifiable trait of members of a population. We could be talking about humans, we could be talking about apples, or we could be talking about cats. It doesn't really matter. But the point is that each one represents an individual who has a particular trait that is quantified by the number. So, what are the three mathematical operations that are associated with normality? Well, the mean, or average, the median, and the mode. Now, the mode is simply the number that occurs most frequently. So out of the 7 numbers, 2, 2, 4, 8, 21, 22, and 30, 2 occurs twice. So we call this the mode. This is supposed to tell us some information about this particular population, or more precisely, the sample from this population, which we can then use, which we can then extrapolate from and understand the population. That's the idea in statistics. The median is the number which occurs in the middle. When you put them all in order, and they've all been arranged in numerical order, and the number which appears in the middle is 8. So that's the median. You hear this when people talk about median household income, so forth and so on. And the mean, or the average, is a little bit more complicated. You get that number by adding them all together, in this case equals to 89, and then you take that number that you got here, 89, and you divide it by the number of numbers that you have. So there are 7 numbers altogether, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when you divide 89 by 7, you get 12.7, or rounded up 13. That's the mean. That's the average. Now, the interesting thing about this number, which was what our discussion focused on in the group session that I was talking about, is that it doesn't appear anywhere in the actual sequence. If we return to the original list of numbers, you don't see 13 or 12.7 anywhere here. The average does not appear in the actual set of numbers. Now it can, but in this case it doesn't, and in many cases it does not. So what that tells us is that the average, or the normal, does not describe any individual. You can't point to an individual and say, this is the average individual. The average, or the norm, in this mathematical sense, is really a pattern. It's a tool that we use to recognize patterns among things. That's all it is. It's nothing more than a tool. It can be useful at times. You may you may benefit from knowing the average in a given situation or about a particular topic. It can help you make decisions. It can help you understand particular phenomena. But the question is, if you can't point to any concrete individual and say, this person is normal, this person embodies the norm, why do we live our lives always wondering if we're living up to the norm, if we fit? I think in this society in particular, the idea of the norm has been raised to a very high level. It occupies our thinking, our feelings. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others, asking if we're good enough, if our hair is shiny enough, if our tits are big enough, if our nose is too big, you know, or if we have too many varicose veins. I don't know. And the question is, why do we use this tool, which I was just talking about, in this way? Does it really benefit you? Who does it benefit? Let's be completely utilitarian and ask, does it make you happier? Does living this way bring you satisfaction? Does it improve your quality of life? If you can't answer yes to that question, perhaps we should ask, who does it benefit? Does it benefit those in power? Does it benefit those corporations that want to sell you things? You know, I was looking through this magazine recently that I found on a local rack at a coffee shop, outside of a coffee shop, and it was geared towards the women of the professional women of all those who live north of Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana. If you're from Louisiana, that means something to you. If not, just bear with me. And, you know, it's supposed to be this feminist, empowering magazine, but it was totally petty bourgeois when you flip through the pages. And the interesting thing to me was that almost every one of the advertisements in this magazine were about, liposuction, laser hair removal, clothing stores, varicose vein removal, all of these things that were supposed to be empowering you. But the question is, who is really being empowered by this? Who's being empowered by this way of thinking? Really, why play this game? Why live this way? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of tired of it. Maybe you're tired of it too. Like, there were so many better things that I could have done with this paper. I could have drawn something. I could have actually created something, which is not something that we do very often in society. We live in a culture where it's the norm, the average lifestyle involves passive consumption. Well, I think it's time we create. I think it's time we start doing things on our own, for ourselves. Let's not play this game anymore.